Right now, the National Weather Desk, another wildfire explodes in Southern California as powerful winds whip up the flames.
As we continue through these weather conditions, we recognize that it's not over yet.
It literally looks so apocalyptic over here.
Digging out. Cities across the South struggle to remove record-breaking snow from many roads.
These steps at the front of Waterfront Park completely ice.
And what made the storm so powerful?
And this is in part due to our jet streams, why we saw this polar plunge.
Bitter cold temperatures create icy dangers along the Great Lakes.
It's unstable. It's full of cracks, it's full of crevices, it's full of holes.
And why harvesting grapes for ice wine requires some very specific weather.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Red flag warnings are still posted for Southern California, where strong Santa Ana winds are fueling a new wildfire. The Hughes fire started yesterday morning and quickly spread to more than 10,000 acres. It's burning in northern Los Angeles County and Ventura County. More than 30,000 people have been ordered to evacuate, with 23,000 more warned they could be next. Now, early this morning, another fire broke out near I-405, the Getty Museum in Bel Air. Fire crews say they stopped its progress, at least for now, but they are worried about the weekend forecast. As you can imagine, rain could trigger mudslides in burned out areas. Myra Franco has more.
Everybody was like, we have to get to the house now.
Flames and smoke signaled the start of another fire in Los Angeles County around 10:45 Wednesday morning. This one near Castaic Lake. Former Fox 26 News reporter Sofia Lecios and her boyfriend rushed to help his family evacuate their home.
It literally looks so apocalyptic over here.
I don't even know where the fire's at, to be honest with you.
This is what it looked like as she was on her way. And once they arrived, this was their view.
There's literally like fires like popping up over here, over there, like it's over here, the lake is over there. Like,
the family took swift action and hosed down the house, placing sprinklers on it as a preventative measure. And it wasn't just homeowners who were scrambling to leave. Some drivers along I-5 were also in a rush to get out of harm's way.
It was almost down to zero visibility, and everybody was in full panic.
Caltrans eventually closed I-5 in both directions. Johnny Bruman, a trucker from Tulare, says he barely crossed in time to return to the valley.
And there was no traffic from Mettler at the bottom of the Grapevine going over, so southbound was completely closed. So there was no way to get to or from Southern California. There was a lot of vehicles stopped in the middle of the 5. You could tell a lot of people didn't know what to do.
And while he's driven through fog, he says it doesn't compare to the danger of driving through this.
It's definitely worse than fog, especially with the wind and the smoke. So it's zero visibility when it's that bad. And to cross over the 5 like that, it went from 500 acres to over 5,000 in less than an hour. And that's pretty extreme.
And now to that historic winter storm that brought record snow, cold, and at least 10 deaths to the south. The storm is long gone, but people across the region are still feeling the impact at this point. Early morning temperatures remain below freezing in parts of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, but everywhere else, the mercury will rise into the upper 30s and low 40s today, giving some of that snow a chance to melt. And by the weekend, more seasonable weather is returning. Meteorologist Violet Skybor explains how the storm came together and looks at some of the remarkable snow totals.
This is in part due to our jet streams, why we saw this polar plunge. So we have 2 jet streams, or the roadways for our weather systems. One to our north called the polar jet stream, one to our south called the subtropical jet stream. And they normally blow from west to east across the U.S., but when we have weather systems rolling through, it can cause kinks in the jet stream. In this case, we had a strong area of high pressure across the Rockies, and it rotates like a clock with a strong north wind across the middle of the country, pulling down this polar air mass. Plus, we had an area of low pressure across the Gulf Coast states, which brought up some moisture from the south, and that moisture turned over to snowfall because of how chilly it was across the southern states. Snowfall totals from Monday night through Tuesday night stretched from Texas all through the entire Gulf of Mexico, even up across the Carolinas. So this broke records for almost every single city. And on average, we really don't see snow down south very often. The average snowfall for an entire year in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi is under an inch. For Alabama, Florida, and Georgia, We usually get nothing. So this is just incredible, the amount they've seen over the past couple of days. This was the worst winter storm in over 120 years for the Gulf Coast states. Older snowstorms before 120 years were unreliable because of the record keeping back then.
The snow blanketed many East Coast beach towns that led to some pretty unique sights like sandy beaches covered in snow. It also gave many kids a chance to see and play in the snow for the first time in their lives. There's also a serious side here. These cities do not have enough plows to clear all of the roads. Lauren Lennon shows us the situation this morning in Charleston, South Carolina.
These steps at the front of Waterfront Park completely hard and rock solid, and it continues up these entire steps. And again, you see that blanket of snow just covering Waterfront Park, and we're going to show you the roads in a minute just to show you what we're looking at in terms of the roads. I'm going to have my photojournalist turn this way to kind of show you what we're looking at road-wise. See, these roads still aren't clear, and again, you've heard this message through our newscast all day today, and you've heard it all day yesterday, and you're probably here for the rest of the week to be cautious on these roads. These roads still have not yet been cleared. This morning when we were driving downtown, we did see a few snowplow trucks out as early as 2 a.m., but again, these roads could have ice underneath the snow. So it's just very important to listen and hear that message of staying off the roads. And if you absolutely have to be on the roads, move slow and move with caution.
Pensacola, Florida is one of the cities that broke its all-time snow record, but officials say a week of planning helped them handle the unprecedented snow. Haley Samples has more.
A historic winter blast in the Florida Panhandle creating trouble on the roadways. Most roads in our area considered impassable at some point.
They said a historical event. They were not kidding. It is a truly historical event.
Escambia County Emergency Management Director Eric Gilmore says it was all hands on deck. Ambulances and fire stations were fully staffed ahead of the storm. Escambia EMS says they responded to more than 247 calls, and the county fire department responded to 57 calls. The road conditions made responding to some of those calls difficult.
What we did is we tried to use the SUVs. We have a lot of expeditions. Our battalion chiefs have four-wheel drive trucks for those hard-to-get spots. And I heard this morning that they were utilizing those SUVs to go get patients and bring them out to an ambulance where an ambulance could make access.
Our area's hospitals treating this winter storm as a hurricane.
We had 160 staff members stay all night last night. We had almost 20 leaders in house last night, so doing the same thing today, doing the same thing tomorrow. So we've kind of activated just like we would have if it would have been a hurricane.
Crews at HCA Florida West Hospital began preparations last week.
It takes logistics, planning, making phone calls, making sure folks have a plan of how to get here, and that every staff member, is going to be able to get here safely, but also making sure the departments are going to be covered for the patients that they have.
We were staffed additionally, yes, and we had people that were offered beds and food and ways to get to work. And I mean, we were just one big family here.
In Mobile, the roof of the Civic Center collapsed in Tuesday's historic snowfall. The building is being demolished, and the city says it could not handle all that extra weight of the snow. No one was hurt in this case. The Arctic freeze did have some benefit up north. It created the perfect weather to harvest ice, wine, grapes in Michigan. Winery staff started harvesting about 1.5 tons of the frozen grapes Tuesday. The process can only happen when temperatures are below 18 degrees for around 24 to 48 hours. The grapes freeze on the vine and are then put in the press while frozen.
Ice wine is always going to have a higher residual sugar content, and that is just because so much of the water is frozen, and because sugar freezes at a lower temperature than water, that's what's left over. So it's a really viscous, really sweet product that comes out.
The ice wine harvest includes both white wine and red wine grape varieties. And check out this video of the Hudson River in New York. Large chunks of ice formed earlier this week because of the extremely cold temperatures. The ice caused delays for commuters who use ferries to get into Manhattan. Look at this. There have been years where temperatures were so low, the river completely froze over, allowing people to actually walk out onto the ice. Moisture from our southern storm is now heading to Ireland, where the nation is now preparing for one of the strongest storms to hit the island in decades. Storm Eowyn is a bomb cyclone that will bring wind, gusts, and excess of 80 miles per hour. It's expected to arrive tonight. Ireland has issued the highest level code road warning for most of the nation as well. And coming up, the National Weather Desk will show you what weather conditions trigger winter storm warnings. It's different depending on where you live.
Orlando, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Plenty of snowfall meant lots of snow fun across the South this week. In South Carolina, this golf cart and a kayak turned into gleeful moments in snowy streets. And this dad, also a meteorologist, became a temporary sled for his kids. In North Carolina, this back porch time lapse captures accumulation over several hours. And in Florida, an oar was used to tackle a snow overhang in Pensacola.
When cold weather hits, like what much of the country has been dealing with, social media is flooded with videos of people tossing boiling water in the air. So this morning, we're going to break down the science behind these viral videos. Here's meteorologist Evan Chick-Vera.
So it's kind of complicated from a scientific standpoint. So the reason you need boiling water for this to work, in all reality, you need the temperature to be like well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. You do this, in the Dakotas where it's, -10, it'll all turn to crystals, unlike what you saw with mine. But boiling water exerts a greater vapor pressure than does regular water. As soon as you toss that water up, okay, it allows that water to expand. There's more surface area. It also heats the air. The air can then hold more water, and then in turn, you get this almost instantaneous freezing to ice crystals rather than icicles, and it'll change. So due to the nature of water, of course, and the vapor pressure, you need to have boiling water. It'll phase change quicker, and the colder it is, the better it works. So try it, be safe. Again, best is if it's really, really cold outside, preferably like below 0, which I'm not going out in that. It was about 15 this morning. That was enough for me.
When it comes to winter precipitation, snow has plenty of company. What falls in any particular location depends on what it encounters in the layers of atmosphere. Meteorologist Jenna Warner tells us more.
Well, when talking about winter weather precipitation, it all has to do with what the atmosphere is doing above the surface, whether what is actually received at the ground is what's falling from the cloud base. So, for example, with rain, you have snow falling from the base of the cloud, but as it falls through the atmosphere, it reaches a warm layer above freezing, and that layer extends all the way to the surface, so that falls as rain. Now, if we're taking a look at freezing rain, there's actually a little difference because there's a layer of freezing air near the surface. So the rain that falls, it's a similar process as to just rain. It warms up in that warm layer, but it freezes on contact with the ground as the ground is freezing. Now, talking about sleet, it's a similar process to freezing rain. We have snow falling from the cloud base through a freezing layer in the atmosphere, and then it reaches a warm layer, it melts into rain, and then there is a layer of freezing air just above the surface. So this rain refreezes and it creates sleet, and that goes all the way to the ground. Snow, of course, is the easiest one. You have a freezing layer all the way from the top of the cloud base to the ground, so those snowflakes are able to fall all the way to the ground.
In Pennsylvania, prolonged cold has caused chunks of ice to form in the Susquehanna River. Meteorologist Tom Russell gives us a closer look at the frozen river and explains why the real dangers come once temperatures start to warm back up.
I'm here on City Island in the middle of the Susquehanna to show you just how amazing river ice is. River ice is very different from, say, a frozen pond, where ice is static. It forms at the surface and then gets deeper as things get colder. River ice, on the other hand, is made up of chunks of ice that aggregate. These chunks ride up and over each other, and they form this thick crust, all while the river is still running underneath it. River ice is pretty docile until things start to warm up. That's when river ice is on the move, and its force can take out anything in its path. It can also cause ice jams, essentially a dam that causes flooding in its wake. So river ice is amazing, and this is why it's more than meets the eye.
Ice on rivers and lakes are not the same. Around the Great Lakes, the frigid temperatures are creating something called shelf ice on the shoreline, and when shelf ice can make for a great view. Officials say the view is best from a distance. Cody Bear is in Michigan with more.
Because of the nature of the ice, it's unstable, it's full of cracks, it's full of crevices, it's full of holes. By its very nature, because of how it's formed with the wind, it's really not very stable.
With colder temperatures and winds in northern Michigan, this water could soon begin to look like this. Lake shores lined with shelf ice, which is
ice that is formed by waves. So on super cold days like today, where you have waves the ice freezes almost instantly, and so it creates these ice shelves.
Chase Schelling, a captain and EMS coordinator for Leland Township Fire and Rescue, says while shelf ice can provide an amazing view, it's best viewed from afar.
What we'd recommend is looking at it from the shoreline or looking at it from flat ice, solid ice. Avoid climbing the caves themselves, avoid climbing the shelf layers.
Because those shelf layers aren't only unstable for climbing, they also create complications for rescues.
Because of the different cracks and the crevices and the holes formed by the shelf ice, it can be very challenging for us to get to the patient and then get them out.
Captain Schelling says all ice can be dangerous, and if you plan to explore even thick and more stable ice, there are some important precautions you should take.
Making sure you're dressed appropriately, making sure they have a flotation device, letting somebody know where you're going, how long you expect to be gone, and when you expect to be back, and then having a phone or a way to call help inside a waterproof bag on the inside of your clothing to hopefully give you that chance to call for help should you need it.
When it comes to ice, one of the most common places to find it during the cold winter months is on your car. It's tempting to want to use hot water to break it up, but Simon Williams explains why that is not the best idea.
Now, hot water will temporarily melt ice, but if you think about it like a race, essentially the water would need to dry before it's able to refreeze. With temperatures this consistently cold, it would refreeze before it could dry. And on your pavement, you would be creating kind of a black ice because it would freeze over in a thin layer with little bubbles in it. Now, your best bet when it comes to something like sidewalks or your driveway would be by using a chemical ice melt or by mechanically removing it with something like a shovel. When it comes to your windshield, pouring hot water on a windshield creates a heat difference. Essentially, one side of the windshield is heating up faster than another side. It's creating a tension that could chip, crack, or even shatter the glass on your windshield. Your best bet is to just give yourself time, gradually warming it up so you don't have that thermal shock. You can speed the process along by using some sort of windshield wiper fluid that has antifreeze in it. The key is you need something with a freezing point colder than water. Water freezes at 32 degrees. Most antifreeze would freeze at negative 30 degrees. But even in your house, rubbing alcohol has a freezing point of negative 130 degrees. In order to protect your car, though, most experts suggest something like a spray bottle, diluting it with 1/3 rubbing alcohol, 2/3 water, and then you could just spray it right onto your windshield.
And time now for a short break, but first we soar over Tacoma Port in Washington State.
We're watching the National Weather Desk.
What determines whether a winter storm warning will be issued for any given area, and are the criteria uniform across the country? Meteorologist Emily Santom explains the differences between two regions of the country.
According to the National Weather Service grade criteria, a winter storm warning is issued when forecasts suggest 6 inches of snow outside the foothills over a 12-hour period span, or 8+ inches in the mountain. Here's a look at some of the winter storm criteria. You can definitely tell the 8 inches in that magenta. Down in southern New England along Maine's coastline, we're talking 6 inches. And over in the western portion of the Northeast, over New York and Vermont, we're talking 7 inches. If we head down to the Gulf of Mexico, though, where they got a lot of snow down in Florida, Louisiana, try 1 inch of snow. That's how they can get a winter storm warning down there, as they don't see that much. For a blizzard warning, though, there needs to be frequent wind gusts or sustained winds of 35 miles per hour, blowing snow and visibility reduced to 1/4 of a mile for 3 consecutive hours or more.
Looking for more weather content, you can find us on all your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back.